What's good, y'all? The NBA trade deadline is complete. Now we know what teams are going to look like for the rest of the year. Some teams made some big splashes, some teams sat pat. I'm going to go over each and every deal that happened today in this video, whether it's super small or an all-star player got traded. Every trade that went down from Wednesday and Thursday of the actual trade deadline will be included in this video. Any other trade, including the Luka Doncic trade or the De'Aaron Fox, Zach LaVine trade, those have their own separate videos on my channel already if you want to hear my thoughts on that, as well as any of these smaller trades that went on before today and yesterday. Those are also on my channel as YouTube shorts. But we have a lot of trades to go over that happened in these last 2 days, so buckle in. Make sure you leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you already haven't. Let's just jump into the first trade. In this one, we have the Bucks getting Kyle Kuzma and a second-round pick from the Washington Wizards. The Wizards get Chris Middleton and AJ Johnson, as well as a 2028 first-round swap from Milwaukee. And then the Spurs swoop in and pick up Patrick Baldwin Jr. Starting off with the Bucks, I'm gonna give this trade a B- for them. I know it's been pretty rumored that they wanted to move off of Chris Middleton, and obviously he's not nearly the same player he was before he went through all of these injuries. But I still really like the season that Chris Middleton was having for Milwaukee, coming off their bench majority of the time. And I know Kyle Kuzma has been having a very, very rough season out in Washington, but I do think that a more structured role and team for him would definitely benefit him. I like that he can bring size to Milwaukee. It allows them to run a few different lineups now that they have a true power forward like him besides Giannis. And the last time we saw Kyle Kuzma in a winning atmosphere, that was of course in LA, where he won a championship and was a big piece to the Lakers winning that championship. I think at his best he can bring size, rebounding, and shot creation to Milwaukee. All three things that they do need. I just think when you look value-wise, I don't like the fact that they gave up their first-round rookie from this season, as well as a pick swap for Kyle Kuzma. Then to look at it from the Wizards' perspective, I do give them a B+ in this trade. I like bringing in just young talent like AJ Johnson. He's super raw right now, wasn't really getting any type of show in Milwaukee. Obviously, the Wizards are in a rebuild right now, so them just bringing in young guys, I like that, as well as the pick swap. That could be pretty valuable in 2028. I mean, we're seeing right now in this trade deadline, you never know what's going to happen and what teams are going to look like a few years in the future. So the fact that they have this pick swap, I do like. And then Chris Middleton is coming in here. I don't really expect too much for Chris. It would be cool if the Wizards can rehab him back to have some value and trade him further on in, the offseason or the year after that. That would be nice, but I'm not really expecting too much from him. Just the young guys and draft capital I really like. These next three trades we're going to go through pretty fast because you should see a reoccurring theme here. In this first one, we have Philly sending over KJ Martin, a 2027 second-round pick from Milwaukee, and a 2031 second-round pick from Dallas over to Detroit in exchange for cap space. Then in this trade, we have Boston sending over Jaden Springer and a 2030 second-round pick to Houston in exchange for some cap space. And then we have the Pelicans sending Daniel Tice and a 2031 second-round pick to the Thunder in exchange for, you guessed it, cap space. I'm not going to give grades to these trades that are just this one team is sending over this player and a second-round pick in exchange for more cap flexibility. There's not really a grade to give. A lot of the times, the player that gets sent over is either sitting on the bench or gets waived by the team he picks up. And then they're getting second-round picks, which is cool, but in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter too much. Moving on to our next trade, we see Jonas Valanciunas going to the Sacramento Kings in exchange for Sidi Sissoko, a 2028 second-round pick from Denver, and a 2029 second-round pick from Sacramento. At first, this was a pretty weird trade for me, looking at it from the Kings' perspective. Ultimately, I'm going to give them a B on this grade just because I really do like Jonas Valanciunas. I think he's a solid basketball player. He'd obviously be coming off the bench considering the Kings have Domantas Sabonis. So as your backup big, Jonas Valanciunas is very good to have, and he will definitely be able to make it so Sacramento has 48 minutes of true center play because, realistically, they didn't really have too good of a backup center. Shout out to Isaac Jones. He was solid, but I obviously would rather much have the near 7-footer of Jonas Valanciunas coming off my bench. He's going to allow them to kind of run the same system that they do through Sabonis, through Jonas Valanciunas, because he's a great rebounder, interior force. He has a soft touch. He's pretty solid as a playmaker too. I'm interested to see if we'll see any minutes of Valanciunas and Sabonis together. I know Sabonis, he used to be a power forward early in his career when he was in Indy playing alongside Miles Turner. We could maybe see some minutes of that and just go super big. I don't really know how much I would like that though either. All in all though, I like that they added to their depth. I like that they added talent to their roster. It doesn't really address their pretty bad defense, but I mean, I'll take talent when you can get it. And then for Washington, I gave them a C+. I know it was rumored that they wanted to move off Jonas Valanciunas at this trade deadline. I just felt like they could have probably got a little bit more value from him. They got City Sissoko, who they already waived, and then 2 second-round picks. It would have been cool to get at least a first-round draft capital. But it is what it is. Now the trade that you guys have all been waiting for, the infamous Jimmy Butler trade, it did go down and he is now a Golden State Warrior. In return, the Heat are getting Andrew Wiggins, Davion Mitchell, Kyle Anderson, and a 2025 top 10 protected first round pick from the Golden State Warriors. The Raptors, Pistons, and Jazz came in and helped facilitate this deal. The Raptors are getting PJ Tucker and a second round pick. The Pistons are getting Dennis Schroeder, Lindy Waters, and a second round pick. And the Jazz are getting Josh Richardson and a 30-31 second round pick. I'm not going to give any grades to the Raptors or to Utah in this trade because, again, they're just kind of here facilitating, moving parts around. At the time of recording this video, the Jazz already waived Josh Richardson, and I would assume the Raptors are going to be waiving PJ Tucker pretty shortly. Starting off with the Golden State Warriors, I gave them a B- on this trade. Bringing in a talent like Jimmy Butler obviously is going to help them. They got the best player in this trade, and that is worth something. But I really couldn't give them too high of a grade on this trade just because I don't really like the fit of Jimmy Butler alongside the rest of the Golden State Warriors. I was trying to figure out in my mind what a starting lineup would be, and the best I got is you have Steph Curry, maybe Buddy Hield or Brandon Podziemski. I know both of those guys are usually off the bench, but you need shooting in this type of lineup. And then you have Jimmy Butler, Draymond Green, and Trace Jackson Davis. Even if you want to put Kuminga in that lineup and take away even less of the shooting, all around, I don't love the fit, but like I said, you're adding talent. I could just see the Warriors struggling with their spacing on a lot of lineups, and it's funny to say that considering they have Steph Curry, but besides Steph Curry and Moses Moody, maybe even Buddy Hield too, who's having a little bit of a down stretch, they don't really have much shooters on this roster at all. And then also, Jimmy Butler loves to operate in the mid-range game. Obviously, he gets to the rim very much as well, but in the mid-range, that's kind of his bread and butter offense. The Warriors don't run a lot of mid-range shots. They like to get threes and they like to get layups. But some things that I know for sure Jimmy Butler will help out with is their playmaking. He is going to be one of the better playmakers on this roster, probably the third best besides Steph Curry and Draymond Green. And then defensively too, he's going to help. He gives them some size as well. I know they traded out Andrew Wiggins. Basically on the defensive end, that's what Jimmy Butler is. He's not as good as a defender as he once was, but he still can turn it on and lock in when he needs to be. I don't really know. This is one of those trades that I have to see it on the court for a few games before I have a concrete, solid grade and what I feel about this trade. But for right now, I'm giving them a B-. Then looking at it from the Miami Heat's perspective, I'm giving them an A-. I really like the haul that they got back from Jimmy Butler. I thought that Jimmy kind of just ruined it for everyone and he tanked his trade value and they really wouldn't get much back. But considering the circumstances, I really do like this package. I think Andrew Wiggins is going to be a great fit in the Heat starting lineup. I feel like he is pretty much a Heat culture type of guy, if that makes sense. He brings size, he brings defensive versatility, he brings shooting. I really like him alongside a guy like Tyler Hero and Bam Adebayo, Khalil Ware. Then even the other players that they got back of Kyle Anderson and Davion Mitchell. I'm not too sure if Kyle Anderson will get any real playtime for the Heat, and I don't know if he'll be in their rotation. But he could. Davion Mitchell, though, I'm more confident in him getting some playtime and being that backup point guard, that defensive first mindset. Again, kind of like I was saying with Andrew Wiggins, I feel like Davion Mitchell is a Heat culture type of guy with his defense. And he has some extra ball handling that he can just give to them. And then the first round pick from the Warriors this season, it's top 10 protected. I doubt that the Warriors really would have a top 10 pick. If they do, though, then next year it's going to be top 10 protected for the Heat. And if they still have a top 10 pick there and it doesn't convey, in 2027 it becomes a completely unprotected first round pick. So they will be getting value from that pick. It's not a fake one. And before we move on to the next trade, I do want to highlight the Detroit Pistons here. They're bringing in Dennis Schroeder, some second round picks, and just other salary filler just to help facilitate this deal. But I really, really love the pickup of Dennis Schroeder. Before he got traded to the Warriors in Brooklyn, he had the ball in his hands a lot, and he was being very, very productive as a scorer, as a playmaker, as a ball handler in general, bringing some defensive intensity as well. Now that he's in Detroit, I think he can bring a lot of those things, and that's what the Pistons have really been missing right now, is another ball handler next to Cade Cunningham. Dennis Schroeder is the perfect guy there. I think he can run long lineups with Cade Cunningham. I think he can run some bench units when Cade is off the bench. And again, they're able to bring in a guy that can really be beneficial for them as a playoff team for nothing. They didn't give up anything in this deal. They just helped move the pieces around, and for that, I'm giving them an A grade for their involvement. This next trade sees the New York Knicks sending Jericho Sims to the Milwaukee Bucks in exchange for DeLon Wright. I'm going to give the Bucks a B+ grade on this trade. When you look at their front court, or their bigs more specifically, that they pretty much only run Giannis Antetokounmpo, Bobby Portis, and Brook Lopez. Now Jericho Sims can come into this lineup, and I don't know if he'll officially be in the rotation, but at the bare minimum, he gives them some more security as a center. He's a pretty good rebounder, pretty good defender as well. Offensively, he doesn't really give you too much, but for just defense and rebounding and size, I think those are all three things that Milwaukee could really benefit from. And then for the Knicks, I'm giving them a C+ grade in this. Jericho Sims wasn't really playing for them at all, and they're bringing in a guy like DeLon Wright who should fit Tibbs' system, but I don't really know if he's going to get any PT at all. The Knicks already have Deuce McBride and Cameron Payne as their guards off the bench. Here we have another blockbuster trade where we see the Pelicans sending over Brandon Ingram to the Toronto Raptors in exchange for Kelly Olynyk, Bruce Brown, a 2026 first-round pick from the Indiana Pacers, and a second-round pick. Funny enough, I'm giving both teams a B grade on this trade. Starting off with the Toronto Raptors here, they brought in a guy like Brandon Ingram without really giving up too much of value, but I don't really love the fit of Brandon Ingram with this team. If you think about it, their core right now is Emmanuel Quickley, RJ Barrett, Brandon Ingram, and Scotty Barnes. That's like their 1 through 4, and then Jakob Poeltl as the 5 there. The fit of that team right there, I don't love it at all, really, to be honest with you. But it is talent, and especially when you're a team like Toronto right now, who just is early in their rebuild, or early-ish in their rebuild, and also a smaller market that's not a big free agency destination. When you see a guy like Brandon Ingram available, it makes sense to take a swing on it. It's a buy low situation here for Toronto. And like I said, they didn't really give up too much of value here. So I don't hate it, but I don't love it. Similar to the Jimmy Butler situation, I need to see it on the court before I really have concrete feelings about this. And then to look at it from the Pelicans, like I said, I give both teams a B here. Bruce Brown is expiring contract, so they can kind of just wipe their hands away with that. And then Kelly Olynyk, he has 1 more year on his deal, and I feel like he's not the perfect center to sit next to Zion Williamson, but a very good center to put next to him, considering, he has the shooting ability to space the floor and leave that paint open for Zion. He also is a pretty good playmaker, too, to, drop off those passes on cuts and things of that nature. Offensively, I really like what Kelly Olynyk brings. Defensively, a front court of him and Zion I don't love, but it's still cool, and obviously the Pelicans were looking to move Brandon Ingram, so the fact that they can get back anything of value player-wise is pretty cool, and then the draft capital as well is like the cherry on top. Here's another pretty big trade where we see the Charlotte Hornets sending over Mark Williams to the Lakers in exchange for Dalton Connect, Cam Reddish, a 2030 first round swap, and a 2031 first round pick. When this trade first went down, I saw a lot of people really happy for the Lakers in this trade, and it makes sense because Mark Williams on paper is pretty much the perfect center you want to run alongside a guy like Luka Doncic for the future. He's big, 7'2", with the super long arms, great lob threat, rim protector, rebounder, roller, again, all of the things on paper that you would want next to Luka Doncic. The one thing that I don't really love about this trade is, one, Mark Williams' health has been a concern for his entire career right now. I know in Charlotte it seems like health is a big issue for anyone that steps foot there, so hopefully he can get rid of the injury bug now that he's in LA. And then also the fact that they gave up not 1, but 2 first-round picks, essentially. That first one is a pick swap, and obviously now that they have Luka Doncic, those picks aren't as valuable, and I would assume that a Luka-led Lakers team would be better than a Charlotte Hornets team, even though it's all the way in 5 years. I would assume that the Lakers are going to be better, so the swap isn't too valuable. The unprotected first-round pick, though, I don't love, especially since it's so far in the future and really limits the Lakers' asset pool. They don't really have any other assets They didn't have much before trading for Luka. They had even less after trading for him, and now they pretty much have none. So for all of those reasons, I'm giving the Lakers a B- grade on this trade. Like I said, on paper, fit-wise, it's perfect. The health concerns, though, is a little bit much for me, and then also they gave up a decent amount for him. On the flip side of that, though, for Charlotte, I gave them an A- grade because this is a great haul to get back from your injury-prone center. I know that Mark Williams is still young and should be a part of this rebuild in Charlotte, but it seems like they're hitting a mini reset here. They traded Nick Richards away. They traded away now Mark Williams. There's another trade they're involved in that we'll go over in a few minutes. And I know they haven't seen pretty much any success in the last few seasons. So hitting this mini reset, just gathering a bunch of assets, it makes sense. And, you know, bringing in a rookie like Dalton Connect to just have as a shooter. And then, again, those valuable first-round picks. I really like this move for Charlotte. Next up, we have Jared Butler being sent to Philadelphia along with 4 second-round picks in exchange for Reggie Jackson and a 2026 least favorable first-round pick from either the Clippers, the Rockets, or the Thunder. I'm not really going to spend much time on this trade. This is another one of those smaller deals. The Wizards, they already have waived Reggie Jackson. It was pretty much just a consolidation for their second round picks. I think they had like 17 or 18 second round picks in the next few years, so they're able to send those out and get 1 first round pick. Again, just consolidation here. And then the Sixers are pretty much doing the same thing where they're sending out one of their limited first round draft capital picks, and then they're just getting a bunch of seconds in return. Back in Charlotte for this trade, where we see them getting Yusuf Nurkic and a 2026 least favorable first round pick from either Phoenix, Washington, Orlando, or Memphis, in exchange for Cody Martin, Vasilije Micic, and a 2026 second round pick from the Warriors or the Nuggets. I'm gonna give the Suns a B- grade on this one. I know they really wanted to get Yusuf Nurkic off this roster. He was really bad, wasn't even playing for them out of the rotation, and they had to give up a first round pick in this trade to get him off, which I don't really love. But again, they really wanted to get his money off the books, and they got back 2 players like Cody Martin and Vasilije Micic. Micic, I doubt that he'll get any real play time with the Suns. Cody Martin, though, is an interesting one. I like him as a player individually, but here in Phoenix, I feel like they already have a bunch of wings that do very similar things. You know, when you look at Royce O'Neal, Grayson Allen, Ryan Dunn, all of those guys on offense are pretty much spot-up guys. They compete defensively. You know, and they don't really do too much besides that. And again, that's really all you need from your wings when you have guys like Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal. But it seems just slightly redundant for me that this is all they really got back. Then for the Hornets, I gave them a B+. Nurkic allows them to have an actual center on their roster, considering they just traded Mark Williams and Nick Richards at this deadline. And then also they get that first round draft capital. When you're rebuilding, you want as much capital as you can. Next up, we have the Cleveland Cavaliers acquiring DeAndre Hunter from the Hawks in exchange for Karis LeVert, Georges Niang, 2 pick swaps in 2026 and 2028, and 3 second round picks. Looking at Cleveland, I'm going to give them an A grade on this one. Out of all of the trades that don't include an all-star caliber player, this might be my favorite one. DeAndre Hunter is having a career year off the bench for Atlanta, just scoring at will for them. Great shooter, can get to the rim, competes defensively still, has great size. Essentially, the Cavs just upgraded Karis LeVert. You know, Karis LeVert would come off the bench for them and give them buckets, give them some offense. Now they have a better version of that in DeAndre Hunter in pretty much all aspects of the game. And considering Cleveland is already the #1 seed out east and they got even better at this trade deadline, it's a pretty scary sight. And then for the Hawks, I gave them a C just because I don't really know why they would want to move off of DeAndre Hunter. Like I said, he's having a career year. He's under contract for the next few seasons at least. I don't know why they would want to move off of him. I know they're having a pretty disappointing season this year. They started off pretty well and have really cooled off since then, but still, like I said, he's under contract for the next few seasons, still relatively young. I don't really know why they would want to move off of him. And when I first looked at the trade, I really liked it for them considering the draft capital they got back, but then I looked closer at those first round picks, and like I said, they're swaps, but they're swaps also between Utah and Cleveland. To simplify things, in order for Atlanta to see any of those first round picks, they need to be a better team than the Utah Jazz and the Cleveland Cavaliers. and I honestly don't really see a world where that happens. We're staying in Atlanta for this next trade where we see them sending Bojan Bogdanovic and 3 second-round picks to the Los Angeles Clippers in exchange for Terrence Mann and Bones Hyland. This is another pretty questionable trade in my eyes for the Hawks. I gave them a C+ on this. Bojan Bogdanovic is having a very down season. That is no secret at all. But to have to give up 3 second-round picks to get off his contract, that's something I was not expecting and I don't really like. And then the players they got back of Terrence Mann and Bones Hyland, I don't really like either of those guys either. No disrespect to them, but Bones Hyland hasn't been able to stick in the NBA since he got drafted. And then Terrence Mann has shown flashes of being a solid 3-and-D wing, and that's essentially it. So I really don't like this trade for them. When you look at it from the Clippers perspective though, I gave them a B on this one. They're getting 3 second-round picks back, which is pretty cool because the Clippers have really limited draft capital right now. And then they're also taking a swing buying low on Bojan Bogdanovic. But we know how good Bogey could be. But this season, like I said, has been really, really rough for him. At the ceiling, at the best case scenario, the Clippers get another guy that can be a creator and an offensive contributor. At the worst case scenario, they get 3 second-round picks. We're coming down to the last few trades here. This one's a 3-teamer where Marcus Smart is heading over to Washington along with a first-round pick this year from the Memphis Grizzlies. The Grizzlies are getting Alex Len, Kobe Jones, Marvin Bagley III, Johnny Davis, a 2028 second-round pick from Sacramento, and another second-round pick. And the Kings are getting Jake LaRavia. Marcus Smart has been very, very disappointing in Memphis. He barely played for them, and when he did, he didn't really look like the Marcus Smart we knew from Boston. So it makes sense that they wanted to just move off of his contract. To have to give up a first-round pick, pretty rough. But, you know, you got to do what you got to do. This also gives them some more flexibility so they can extend Jaren Jackson Jr., who's having an all-NBA caliber season this year. It makes sense money-wise why they would want to do it. And then they get some players back and 2 second-round picks. The players, I don't think any of them will really be contributors for the Grizzlies. They're already one of the deepest teams in the NBA. Like I said, this deal is pretty much exclusively made so they can free up the money and extend Jaren Jackson Jr. I'm giving them a B- on this. The Wizards get a B+ because they get to take in Marcus Smart, they get a first-round pick, and I've said this time and time again, when you're a rebuilding team, you want as many draft picks as you can. So this is cool for them, and it also allows them to maybe rehabilitate Marcus Smart into someone of value and then trade him later on. That would be cool, but at the bare minimum, they at least get that first-round pick. And then for Sacramento, I'm giving them an A- on this grade. I really like Jake LaRavia as a player, and the fact that they only had to give up salary filler and a second-round pick for him, I like that a lot. I think he can come to Sacramento and give them some size, some hustle, some defensive intensity. He shoots the ball pretty well. He's one of those guys that just makes those connective plays that you need to make in order to win. And I like that for him. I like that he's going to Sacramento to give them a little bit more toughness. These final 3 trades I'm going to breeze through here. We have Kevin Porter Jr. being sent to the Milwaukee Bucks in exchange for MarJon Beauchamp. Then we have the Hawks sending Cody Zeller and the Houston's own 2028 second-round pick back to Houston in exchange for some cap space. And then the last trade of the 2025 NBA trade deadline, we have the Pacers sending James Wiseman to the Raptors in exchange for some cap space. This legitimately was the craziest NBA trade deadline in NBA history, if you ask me. Not only all of those trades that we just went through, but Luka Doncic getting surprise traded for Anthony Davis, De'Aaron Fox and Zach LaVine moving teams as well. Crazy, crazy trade deadline. Make sure in the comments below you write down your favorite trade. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you leave it a like, subscribe so you don't miss the next one. In the description, there's links to all my social media, so make sure you follow me on all those to keep up to date with me. Catch y'all.